There we go. Okay. What's up, guys? This is episode 10 of the Big Ben Strongcast. I'm here today with Juan Guadarrama, owner of Sorta Brand and host of the Juan101 Podcast. Juan, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. So, for people who may not know you, let's go ahead and can you just give me your background, how you got into coaching, where you started from?
Yeah, so growing up, I was a competitive soccer player. I eventually ended up at LMU, which is a D1 school. I played for a little bit there. During the summers in college, I would go to Quantico for Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. So basically boot camp for officers. I then graduated from that. I declined my commission, became a certified personal trainer, started working at gyms. Then I had the blessing of having my son pretty early on at 23 years old, freaking out, as you can imagine. It's like, I need a real job now, I guess. So then I became an EMT, thought I was going to be a firefighter, started working on an ambulance. I ditched that effort. I was like, yo, this is not what I want to do. And then I just told myself I just need to be the dopest strength coach I can be. Since by that time, I've given up on soccer. I didn't take soccer to the next level. I didn't take Marine Corps to the next level. So I'm like, I need to be the baddest motherfucker as a strength coach. And it's my way of fulfilling that like competitive need. So I feel like a professional athlete. I feel like I'm in the trenches every day, and I love it. I love being around people. I love being around the gym. I feel like it's the centerpiece of everyone's day, and I just like creating that environment and helping guide people. And I feel like I figured some things out in life, and I want to pass that along.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, so I was telling you earlier, like where I first found you was via the Deuce Gym social media, and then subsequently your podcast that you did with Ronnie for a while. Which was fantastic. Yeah. And there was one that you did recently with Corey Gregory that really just like I keep listening to that one a lot because he is just an inspiring guy for sure. But the two of you had some really interesting conversations, and one of those was talking about putting out as much content as possible for, not necessarily for your kids, but it is one of the ways that, if you pass, they have something to remind or remember you by, and a whole bunch of content. And one of them, I think it was you or maybe it was Corey that brought up Chris Moore, who was kind of a big inspiration for me, doing the same thing and just going, he's years and years worth of podcasts and books and articles to read through. And that was one of the things that really inspired me to kind of start building up my library of information that I'm putting out.
Yeah. I look back, I'm like, I think at some point I was interested to see where my family came from, and my dad not really having too much to say about like our ancestry. And I was like, well, the internet is up for grabs right now, and all these things are just going to live forever. Why not start to put it out? And I think at this point, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago where Chris, Ronnie, and I, so the two Deuce Athletics owners, were like, hey, we need to start speaking. And this is all really rooted from Logan and me observing what he has done to try to spread whatever he is currently trying to preach. And I viewed one of the things as I have to get good at speaking in front of people, speaking on media, speaking in front of camera, being comfortable with the content. Otherwise, my thoughts are just going to die with me. And we started off terrible. I don't know what your experience has been, but in the beginning, very choppy, trying to figure out logistics, trying to figure out topics. Does anyone care? How do we vibe off of each other? It's all really difficult. What people don't realize is even in your seat right now, you're listening, but also trying to figure out where am I going to take this conversation next. So also like guiding the conversation. So you're doing a bunch of different stuff at the same time. And so over the years, we've learned and have gotten deeper in our topics. I don't know if you've seen the trajectory of it, but we first started with strength training and talking about like basic stuff. Now I've hoped to evolve to like, now I'm talking about more psychology and mindset. The squat's going to squat. Like, I'm not worried about the squat. I'm worried about what's going on inside the brain that's going to make you squat or not squat. Can I take you to your limits? Can I not? Why is it? Can I type into your psyche to get the things that I know that you can accomplish? So it's evolved over time. It's helped me. It's helped me make better relationships with people, expand my network. It helps stir creativity because you're always constantly thinking about, what do I want to talk about next? What do I want to learn? Who has maybe a niche thing that they're very passionate about that I can take into my toolbox? Who can I brainstorm off of? And even the Corey thing, it helps jump up to people that you look up to, that maybe they mentor you from afar. And the internet's super dope to where the barriers are way less, to where you can DM someone and someone answers and you're like, that's insane. And it makes it all worth it, because everyone's tide is rising together. And I think for strength coaches, we all kind of got into this one, probably because we were all gym junkies and broies, and then realized, oh, there's a people thing to this. And I know how I feel when I lift, and can I multiply that with other people? So it's been cool to take that journey and expand and start to better in how I communicate. And that all just started from, hey, let's try to do this podcast thing, so it's been cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that oh man, when I first started doing the podcast, it was garbage. It was the same exact thing. I would do this thing where I would ask a question and then just black out completely as I tried to figure out what my next question was going to be.
Yeah.
And not hear anything that person said. And that was a big learning curve. There was a few episodes there where I was just like, I can't even put this out. I wonder if I can go back and find those and listen to them again, because I bet it would be so interesting. Yeah, you just brought up something that was pretty interesting, which was like starting off with something simple to talk about the strength training, and then using that as a leap, as like a stepping stone into talking about the real benefits of what we're doing in the gym isn't just getting bigger muscles or getting stronger, but it's the mental aspect of it too. And that mindset is so interesting for me to think about, because most of the coaching that I think higher level coaches do is they'll program workouts that are going to get at the mindset of the person and not the other way around.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So you're not getting a mindset second approach. You're getting a mindset first approach. Can you talk a little bit about what it is, what like mindset characteristics you're looking for when you coach athletes?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there to where a lot of this stems from Deuce. Like, Deuce was probably getting, I feel like, my master's degree basically in training, and also a side benefit of being around Logan. And he's very he's very into the mind and growing and empowering people around him. And one of the first things that we talk about in Coaches Prep, so Coaches Prep is our coaching development program, is mindset, specifically open mindset or closed mindset. And the concept of your skills are not fixed. You can, if there's an effort, you can improve your skill. And it's the understanding, if you can understand that concept, then we can move on to the next step. Now, this is not taking into consideration like genetic beings. Like we're not going to be 6'4", but we can become a better basketball. You suck at basketball because you haven't practiced basketball. You don't suck at basketball because you suck at basketball. Why would you expect to be good at basketball? So with that kind of example, it's, well, if you put effort and work into it, you are to improve, and you can take that principle into anything. Yeah, like let's talk about us podcasting. Yeah, you suck at podcasting because we've never podcasted. And then we've put practice and time and we've messed it up and we've gotten better. But something about it, whether we verbally told ourselves or not, is that we believed we could get better. So the first, I don't know if I think it comes more from the top down at this point for me. So if I say that or preach it and I am an example of it, everyone else kind of adopts that mentality, and it's super cool to see. This one of the other top principles that Logan talks about and Dushim is about is ownership. And this is kind of the Jocko Willink extreme ownership principle, the dichotomy of leadership, principles of leadership is, at the very base of it, your actions are your own fault, whether they're good or they're bad. So you got to look in the mirror at yourself and be okay with, yep, those are my actions and I need to own up to them. So those are kind of the two lead things that I try to instill. I find that most people are not even aware of it. So it's not like they come in with traits already. It's kind of like, hey, let me teach you about these traits. Now that you're aware of it, you have really no choice because everyone else in the gym has adopted these. So it's kind of forced upon you in a positive way. And like, I can't let you come in here and be a little shit. You're not going to be that. And I try to use my personality to try to edge that on. I would say my personality is tough love. And I try to use that in a most forward behavior type of way. And so far it's brought positive results. So those are kind of the two traits that I start with. And then after that, I kind of continue teaching on helping people. And this happens in training, outside of training, in our circle of friends, of where we start to be aware of different cognitive distortions. Like, are we minimizing or maximizing and generalizing? Basically justifying things that happen to us. And these are to, like, you're trying to bring reason to why things are happening to you, which is fine. But under it is that I'm trying to get you to bring awareness to your reasoning. And it's pretty much a waste of time to view it, I think, in a negative way or in a way that doesn't bring forward progress. So like, I'll let you be sad. You can be sad. You're right to be sad or angry or mad or stressed. But I want you to minimize the time that you're there and try to figure out how to change your perspective or change whatever you need to change to make this a positive experience. Like, we don't have time for you to be sitting in your sorrow for days. I'll give you a day, but then buckle up and find a way out of it. And that can be on your own. That can be you talking to me, talking to someone else in the group, making it organic. We'll talk about the gym that we're at now, but I want this to be an organism that it's not just based off of Juan. I want it to be a place where if I disappear, this whole thing is still going and these conversations are still happening. After, so I kind of have this map in my head, but after the mindset and ownership, after you're aware of your distortions of how you're viewing the world, I kind of try to have people figure out their core beliefs. What do you stand for? And that the intent for that is that you have grounds from where you're acting from. Mine, for example, are the principles that I root my whole life in being and make it possible for me to wake up at 3 a.m. every day, is that I value growth. I enjoy doing stuff like this. I enjoy learning. I enjoy pushing my limits on physical training. Another value is contribution. How am I contributing to the community? How am I helping? And that's like me being a strength coach. If my actions lead up to helping others, I'm happy. And the last one is autonomy or freedom. Freedom to be able to do a podcast on Thursday morning. Freedom to leave the gym because I want to go watch Lucas do something at school. Basically having all the things in order, taking care of business so that I can go do things that fulfill me or I want to do. And I think sometimes we get in a rat race of like, I got to get to that before I can do this. And sometimes you got to do that, but also on a micro level, like what I want to go on a walk with my wife today, or whatever the thing is. I have the power to do so. So kind of like giving people tools to try to figure out what they stand for, and it starts to make the days and stress be easier, to where, why am I doing this? Does this match up to the things that I said I stand for? And if it doesn't, why are you spending your time and wasting your time doing it? And I'm lucky. All this comes from, I'm blessed to be around a lot of people and have observations. And I think the best use of the observation is to analyze it and see how I can contribute and help. So currently, right now, it might change in the future. That's kind of my system of thought or thinking. And it's been fun.
That's awesome, man. It seems like you've put this together pretty well. I was kind of scrolling through your social media for looking for things to talk about a little bit. But give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
All right.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'll catch you guys later. Yep. Oh man, my bad. I had two kids walk in and they were like, "Hey, I'm here for training." And I'm like, "Oh man, we don't have training today." Oh man. All right. So it seems like you've put together your thought pattern, your mindset in a pretty specific way. Is this something that you're working on putting together as a product for people or as a service?
Yeah.
So I feel like I saw something that kind of hinted at that a little.
Yeah. So I wanted to get into mentoring, mental performance, and more specific with a goal. So first part of quarantine, this is pretty much what I spent all my time doing. So I started reading mental sports performance books, cognitive stuff, neuro-linguistic programming, a bunch of stuff that I can find. And kind of once I started finding patterns of things, I'm like, okay, I need to come up with my own system that makes sense in my head. And I tell myself that I'm dumb, so I need to create these very simple structures to be able to teach. And like that makes it easy for me. And sometimes when we listen to really smart people, they get way too complex and it's not transferable to the everyday person. I'm lucky enough to have high enough education to where I can understand that and then dumb it down for it to make sense. So I kind of made it a product with the whole gym thing. I'm kind of trying to balance it all.
Yeah.
So what you'll be starting to see soon is me talking about all these things on social media, kind of trying to balance that out with the strength training, publishing more about it, talking about it. I'm also a lot of the time surrounded by high school boys. And that's kind of my main target in helping them out how to have a structure of thinking. Because I look back and I was the dumbass. I didn't really have a structure of thinking. I just had this fire of like wanting to do stuff. So yes, short answer is yes. And that's probably what you'll start to see more. And I'm starting to do that while I'm teaching class, as I'm closing with announcements, before training, mid training, after training. That's like the next big jump for me of like, how can I channel into your psyche and maybe warp and give you powerful tools to execute every part of your life. Like, cool, you want to be a soccer player and you want to strength train, but what does this look like when you're at work? Why can't you have this same fire while you're at work? And I don't really care what your job is. You need to show up.
Right.
So I'm trying to create. I think it also helps to create the culture that I want.
Sure.
So I'm not having to waste time with people who are unmotivated, or convert that person to where, hey, you're not allowed to show up like that. You know. So yeah, that's kind of my next project that I'm currently in.
Man, that's awesome. That's really cool. I've kind of started diving into that a little bit as well recently, within the past in the past few months, probably since right around quarantine started, going through it from a different route though. Are you familiar with Strong Fit?
Yeah. Julian?
Oh,
yeah.
Yep. He yeah. So his thing that he's presenting, the hockey, the flow into fight into flight, has been like a really interesting way for me to start to approach how people are viewing themselves and their stress and everything that's going on in their life, and then why they react the way that they react, and then starting to kind of approach training in a way that one influences those responses. So, if somebody comes in and they just don't seem like they've got that fight, they don't seem like they've got that next level of pushing it to a limit, I think that probably affects most of their life outside of that. So, if they don't push the limit in the gym, they probably can't really push the limit in the work that they do and in the relationships that they have. And so I view that as a global weakness that they need to work on. And so we'll do, a big majority of their training is focused on creating intensity with a sled push or with simple movements, and hopefully allowing that to carry over into the rest of their life. And in the same aspect, if somebody's on the other end of that spectrum and they just get aggressive and go right to fight immediately without having any sort of ability to stay in flow and manage stress in a little bit more of a healthy way, then we'll change the workouts up to, not allowing them to push to max intensity right off the bat.
Yeah.
Way to like.
Well, this is kind of like the things that I've been also think about lately, to where my mind is starting to drift away from thinking of this as strength training and thinking of this
Mm-hmm.
whole gym setting as a non-stress controlled environment. In
Yeah.
that, so the other things that are starting to explore is like breath, right? So there's hacks and breathing
Mm-hmm.
patterns where we can go sympathetic and parasympathetic. We can also do that with training. So like my whole, and the mental thing that we just talked about. So with those three concepts, I'm now starting to think about, okay, with the things that I'm saying, behavior, and now we're going to start in some breath work, is can I get you really good at stressing out in a controlled environment, whether that's breathing mentally and physically, a combination of all those as well. How far can I take you? How far can I take you? How far can I take you? And how can I shut you down? And that's kind of what
Mm-hmm.
training is, right? So I'm starting to plan and organize. And this is going to probably take me the next year and what I want to experiment next. And what you saw with Deuce with the sauna and ice bath as well, kind of bringing all that together to where a bigger picture is, can I train you with all these tools to be really good at both? And what you're probably also starting to find is those guys that run really high, we can run them higher if they can figure out how to shut down really well in micro moments, as from set to set, from week to week, from day to day. How well are you good at backing down? And now that I'm studying more, I'm starting to observe how well I'm able to do it, because I'm like, I've been doing this 3 a.m. thing for years now. Why can I still show up and perform? Like, I think I'm really good at napping and breathing and bringing it back down when I need to, so that when I'm running high, I can be at a really high level. And the same thing with people who run really low. They're probably really good at resting, but can we help them flip the switch and go up and down? And this is kind of like where we look at special ops communities, right? And they do a really good job of that. So it's really interesting that you say that. And I think Julian is doing it at a certain level. I'm now starting to be interested more on the technical level of, like, are we trying to bring more oxygen? Are we trying to take more CO2? And what does that do to our parasympathetic, sympathetic states? And how can we manipulate
Mm-hmm.
that so that we can squat 600, 700, run 5-minute miles? Can we control that? And all that also brings in, like, I'm really bad at meditating. I can't do that. Or I haven't tried, but a way that I feel like I'm doing that is through all this breathing and training stuff. I'm very mindful and very in the moment when I'm with people. I can read people as soon as they walk in, their emotional state. Uh, I'm very aware of my state. Okay, why am I so irritable? Okay, I'm tired. I need to come down. Thursday, I need to take the
Mm-hmm.
day off so I can come back Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a little bit more motivated, a little bit more excited. And for me, that means being mindful, not necessarily just sitting there counting my breaths, but being hyper aware of how I feel and how that affects training. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I'm getting interested in. I might have more details. I'm kind of on the beginning steps of understanding how I want to map that out in my brain, because I think that's the next jump on how we can push our squats, our running, our clean and jerks, all those things that we want to do in the gym, all the sexy stuff, doing all the boring stuff so we can do really well in all the sexy stuff.
Yeah. That's probably a good way to move into this next the gym part. Well, so it's not just a gym. You go ahead and give me the explanation. So what is Sorta Brand?
The Sorta Brand, in a very short sentence, is a community center that happens to have a gym in it. The main thing that
Mm-hmm.
happens in here is for sure training. We're starting, I mean, we just opened, but we're starting to shoot more content and more content that has to do with non-gym stuff. So just like real life topics, maybe topics that people would not want to touch, maybe progressive topics. and having a real conversation about it, not really having political agendas. It's just kind of random thoughts. And I literally just pull people in the room that we start to have a conversation with. I'm like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's jam about this. We're also trying to empower artists. Like I think there's something to be said with creatives. And so yesterday we started reaching out to rappers, producers, people that actually make or like photos and hang them up in the gym. Very family oriented. I'm trying to get families, they hang out here, because a lot of the times, like, what do I do with my kid? Bring your kid. Other things that we want to do is just dumb, fun events, a place where people can kind of feel at home. We set up the internet, we set up stools, so during the day you'll see people working from home here. I view it as just a community center and as a hub and an incubator for other things that happen. I talked about how I have a lot of high school kids that kind of hang out that don't really know where they want to go yet. So there's a lot of mentoring that's starting to happen. We'll have like very side topics. Yesterday, I talked marketing with one of the guys. He's like, I want to learn. What should I do? I'm like, well, what are you into? I don't know. Okay, well, he wanted to do some marketing for me. And I told him it's way more complex than just posting up a photo. Like there's a lot of thought that goes behind this, to where understanding what your demographic is, understanding what your message is, understanding what your product is, and every word that you put out there, every color, every photo starts to build an image and value to why this is. And I asked him, why would you pay $200 for those shoes? Like, well, they're dope. I'm like, well, why are they dope? Why do they make you feel the way that they feel? Because they're not the most functional shoes. They're terrible. But I also understand the style and the dopeness to it. Why does it make you feel like that? And kind of walking them through the things that I did to make people feel the way that they feel when they're walking through these doors. Like, oh, it feels like home. It feels like super relaxed. It feels like there's no rules, but the expectations are high for me. I'm like, well, okay, try to backtrack. Why does it make you feel like that? And I want you to come up with like a marketing plan and things that you would do to instill that. And it's not just, I'm going to pay for Instagram marketing to not have a vibe. It's trying to grab the vibe that's in my head and pour it out on print. So it's all of those things. And the thing that brings us here is the fitness, and we stay for all these other things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny that you brought that up, because I just yesterday was starting to kind of map out, because I don't have any employees right now at the gym, but I'm trying to get my buddy for sure. So mapping through like all the different roles that I play. And one of the things I'm going to do is find an intern, basically, of all the high school students that I work with that wants to figure out how to kind of get the social media thing down and use it as a tool to teach them, so that when they're done, when they graduate or wherever they're going to go, they have at least the opportunity to say, hey, well, I know how to run all of the marketing and the social media and all of that for a business. And that's a massive life skill that you could build a very, very good living on. And so I'm excited to kind of move into that, because I think that's going to be one of the cool things. And so it ties into this idea for the gym that we have, which is not so much just figuring out how to train, but develop people.
Yeah.
Like, I figure if we develop, we're going to be better in the gym, not just the other way around.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, a little bit more about what you guys are doing, developing better people at the gym?
Yeah. So a lot of that comes organic in training. Yeah. There's not like a set time or date or anything of that. It's just kind of in the culture of when we're training, we'll talk about stuff, our relationships, and it's really hard to describe, but we've created this culture to where people on the side, outside of training, reach out to each other or call out each other on our shit, which I think is beautiful. And that's a really high level of ownership and having the mindset to where people are not out to get you. I would say we're pretty aggressive with each other, and that's what ties us together very close. Like if you don't show up, you're probably gonna get hit up by a bunch of people. If you don't put out at the gym, you're gonna be hit up. Like, what are you doing? And that really comes from the 4 a.m. crew, which was the core nucleus of us transitioning over, and everyone kind of realizing that's the vibe, and that it's not Juan on the pedestal coaching or preaching or talking, but it comes from everyone. And there's little side groups that keep each other accountable. So that's like the unofficial way of helping each other out. So things that happen is that we'll talk about our relationship, talk about our careers, talk about something that happened at work, talk about our kids, talk about maybe other people talking about how they first started training to someone who's a little bit newer. I do in the future want to make it a little more official and kind of have a Fight Club style men's group, which I think like in the evening, and having that be a little bit more structured, where someone and it's rotating leads it, has a topic, and talk about things that maybe wouldn't really necessarily talk about in public,
right?
But creating that safe space to do so. Right now we're in quarantine, obviously, but something that I want to do is teach little seminars at local high schools talking about silly ass topics that maybe make us giggle, but are real topics of like how to be a boyfriend. And like you didn't really ever, I don't know, you kind of just learn along the way. But what if there's someone, because I'm almost married I've been together with my wife for like 10 years, married for like 7. Let me talk to you about that for someone, from someone that you might respect or that doesn't look like a parent. And I'm very aware that I still dress like a 16-year-old, but I'm 29, about to be 30. And because of that image, I can maybe talk to you about it, and you might listen to me a little more. So more concrete stuff, that's things that I want to head towards, which I think just keeps solidifying the culture that we're trying to have. And I know that I said a lot of the male stuff, and that's because that's where I have the most experience in, and I'm not open to doing female groups. I just don't have big female groups. And I'm not an expert in what that feels like, but I also might be the tool to help female or women give you the male perspective. But I know that I can impact the male side very directly. And from my experience, sending better men will also maybe help with like the security or insecurities of females may have because of us.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? Can you talk about the send better men? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so this comes from me being a douchebag growing up, as a athlete, a good athlete, being kind of in the limelight a lot of the time, and looking back and realizing that was probably not the best way to go. And then me converting into a husband, which was really hard for me. Like, okay, I gotta grow up in the relationship sense. Like I can still be a kid in other avenues and be a goofball and play, but understanding how to grow up into a assertive, positive male role model, and realizing that things had to change for me to be a good husband because I wanted a happy life. Looking back and trying to visualize what I want my family structure to look like. So you'll see a lot of me and my son, and I'm about to have another son. And I love that. Like, if you're talking about the highest level of coaching, it's parenting. Love it. And just seeing his evolutions and how he interacts with other people. So it really stems from me realizing how bad of a person I was into converting into the person that I'm trying to be now. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to push that. First from being a husband and a father, and then also to having better male relationships, to where maybe before we all play sports, you don't really show that kind of thing with your teammates, and being guys, like it's shunned upon and it's a weakness. And then realizing now at a more mature level, it's not a weakness. We can talk about stuff with each other in our circles and show up in the world as a stronger person, and not having to push other people down to be that strong person. So having basically softer conversations with other men and making that be okay. Because now it feels like I dare you guys to mess with us. We're so closely knitted that you can't really penetrate that. And I would encourage people and guys to find other strong guys to bounce things off of. And you're going to realize that we all feel stronger. You're not on your own, right? Because there's sometimes conversations that you can't have with your spouse that you can maybe have with other men that will help you with the relationship with your spouse. And you're not alone in thinking that. And I'm not going to think less of you for having this conversation. I kind of respect you. And then outside of this, so this is where I get really careful. Like, yeah, let's have our circles to talk about it, but let's not be weenies in the world and be fucking spilling our emotions everywhere. Like, don't show up like that in the world. Have your family structure, and then show up as a strong person in the world. I also realized I kind of am this, I think I'm this pillar of strength, to where in the world, I try not to show that weakness, but when it comes up, I'll also share it. But if Juan can do it, let me try to be strong as well. Let me keep pushing. Let me not back down from this fight. But when I need help, let me reach out as well. And I said that because
I think that's something a lot of people don't do well enough.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of what we see is like help and mentality, which is what I don't want.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's awesome. So, because I remember listening to that podcast that you did. I don't remember who it was with, but the Send Better Men podcast was like a really interesting topic that got me thinking about how I wanted to work with boys, high school boys, a little bit more, so that I can start to help develop that. Because I think that that's something that I also do a really good job of, but I wasn't really impacting other people in a way that I thought that I could show that. Oh man, that's really cool. So I think the last thing I want to talk about before we get going is I think probably the biggest impact is you said something on a podcast. I don't think you guys really talked about it too much, but it was Show Me Coach, and that has made the biggest impact on, I think, my life from what you've put out there. For me, like that got me back into training hard again. That got me wanting to just set better examples. Can you talk a little bit about Show Me Coach, what that means to you?
Yeah, so this really, Ronnie, we were at the track one time, and I don't know if you get frustrated, but you sometimes get frustrated when you see other coaches doing things that they say that you do too. So there's this guy just doing a really poor job teaching other kids some sprint training. So, and we were doing some sprint work as well. And Ronnie just got irritated and just started yelling, "Show me, coach, show me, coach." We were kind of being a little bit of assholes, but also a little bit of truth of like, we believe that you gotta walk the walk. And especially with high school boys and middle school boys, they're tough. They're not going to listen to you unless they respect you. So it was this concept to where I'm not ever going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do. Yesterday I posted about this. The bad thing is I'm willing to die, kids. And so this is where I jump in with the kids sometimes, and I'll outlift them, outplay them. But to kind of like burn this desire for them to be us, for them to expect high levels of performance from us as well, to show the example, like, yo, this is how it's done. This is how you play. This is how you show up. This is like, I don't even play soccer. That's not what I do, but I'm going to show up and I'm going to beat you. You should want to show up and beat me. And if you beat me, or if I beat you, you got to show respect. It's just kind of this mantra of really living what you're preaching. And that's what makes us waking up early easier, what makes showing up easier. Half of these things I did 4 hours before you showed up. Yeah. I'm not expecting things that I wouldn't expect out of myself. And you can see when they tap in, they just change. They're like wanting to come at 4 a.m. Hey, can I come today? Can I come today? I'd rather have that and tell you to go home because you need to rest than begging you to show up. So I think everyone knows anything that I ask you to do, I think you can do it as well. It's not like it's impossible. And it helps change the mentality of, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit, but also everyone else in the room's already done it. And a little egotistical, and I think all of us feel this way about our gyms, is if you say you train here, you better look like you train here. I can't have you go out in the world and be soft, you know?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I think that Show Me Coach made such a big difference. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I have started doing this squat every day thing since I heard the Corey podcast late. Have you done that before?
Yeah. So I met Corey when he did a podcast at Deuce, and then he comes to Venice every summer. And then he just dropped in and I worked out with him. It was just me and him. He was doing squat every day. I was doing squat every day. And then I think I met him 3 times before Ronnie and I went to Ohio. Went to Ohio to meet him. And by that time, he's like, yo, I remember you. I'm like, tight. You know my name. And then after that, he started following me, and then back and forth, and he saw that my 4 a.m. crew got bigger and bigger and bigger. And he's like, yo, what is this? What are you doing? And then kind of started mentoring me a little bit more interaction, more communication. This year I went to go visit him again. So it's like we just become friends over time. And he does the craziest shit, dude. And he's all in inspiration. Logan and him and Louie are kind of my 3 pillars that I look up to. And they're all fucking badasses. And they all kind of do stuff in a little bit of different way. And I kind of try to take traits that I like and kind of, that's me. All right. So like where I'm at now is a little bit of Corey, a little bit of Logan, and a little bit of Louie, and the things that I stand for. And they all got their own swag and their own style and highly educated. Corey does this thing where he latches onto a concept and then he just rolls with it. Louis is obviously the godfather of strength training, and what Logan has brought to me is the mental side, of the academic side, and of the continued of growth and how to create a community. But yeah, that's kind of where that's how I first squatted 405, was squatting every day.
Yeah, man, it's been a pretty big game changer for me. definitely. I gotta see if I can put together like probably big three influencers are, because I think that would help a little bit with figuring out how I want to create the community of the gym, because I think that it is a good community, but it's not something that I feel like would be able to survive and thrive on its own if I wasn't here for it. And so I got to figure out. I think I got to lean into that and figure that'll be my probably next big struggle with growth for the gym.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Think about that. Yeah. All right, man. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. What do you got going on? You got anything that you want to blast? Sponsors? How do people get signed up for the gym? What you got?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm kind of pushing right now is the newsletter that I started for Sorta. I'm kind of trying to make it this cool centerpiece to the gym, to where everyone kind of knows what's going on. There's a blog, there's podcasts on there. We could probably set this link up on there. Things that I've been listening to, things that I've been watching. Like I'm gonna put The Last U. Have you seen The Last U Netflix series? Like JUCO, junior college football. They're always great.
I haven't, but I've never watched that.
Yeah, so like things that maybe stir, watching other people's discipline, watching people grow, challenging thoughts, helping people just think of other concepts, always challenging your perspective. Vince has started doing some blog posts. He runs a comic book company. He's a writer, so he's a really good writer. And just things that are going on in the world that I think are cool and dope. So there's some technical stuff, there's some fun stuff, there's some stuff that's going on in the world. So I'm kind of pushing that. If you guys want to check that out, sortabrand.com. The little newsletter sign up thing shows up on there, and that's kind of where I'm spending most of my time, trying to develop and spread the word of whatever the thing that I'm doing is going on. Yeah.
Very cool. And where can people follow you on social media?
Spend most of my time on Instagram. You can look up JL Guadarrama, or I think the short link is Coach Juan G. That also works as well.
Cool. And then Sorta Brand on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
as well. So guys, thank you
for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow Big Ben Strength and Conditioning on Instagram. We're at Big Ben Strength and Conditioning on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then Big Ben Strength on Twitter and TikTok. We've got a whole lot of new things going on with the gym, so stay tuned on our website, www.bigbendsc.com. Thanks, Juan. It's been great.
See you, bro.
Go ahead and pause this recording right now.